Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, whatever time zone you're on. Welcome to the new session on GE appliances and transforming GE appliances with Rendanheyi. I would like to say to you before I share my screen and start the session that it will be interpreted in Mandarin and in Japanese. And if you need any other language, you should go to the interpretation button on Zoom and choose a language. And you should find that in the menu, down menu, bottom menu. So with that, I would like to start sharing my screen and start the session. So again, welcoming to Transforming GE Appliances with Rendanheyi. Today, I have with me an absolutely astonished and distinguished panel of experts. We have Professor Edgar Schein, that is Society of Sloan Fellow Professor of Management Emeritus and Professor Emeritus at the MIT Sloan School of Management. And if you don't know it, Professor Schein was, I think, the first one and the initiator of organizational behavior, the field of organizational behavior in the world. So who knows more on organizational behavior and corporate culture than Professor Schein? Then we have Peter Schein with us, a founder and CEO of the Organizational Culture and Leadership Institute, and with decades of experience from the tech scene in Silicon Valley. We also have Professor Benjamin Laker. He is a professor of leadership and postgraduate research director of leadership, organization, and behavior at the Henley Business School. And then we have our Antonio Boadas. He is the chief communication officer at GE Appliances. And not only that, he's also an inside expert on the GE appliance transformation. So together we will try to give you a better understanding of the transformation of the company and then answer your question at the end. So just to give you some structure over the event, it's a 1-hour event. And the purpose is to present and discuss the transformation of GE appliances and what we can learn from this case. If you are like me, you want a helicopter view, what's going to happen and what's going on here. So we're going to start with a very short introduction of the GE case. I'm going to give a very, very short snapshot based on my research findings. It's a 7-month research that I've done, and then followed by Antonio Boadas that will give the insider perspective of the real transformation. So you will get both the outsider perspective and the insider perspective. Then we will go over to a question from the expert panel. We will have a panel discussion with the experts, and we will, of course, let you ask whatever questions you might have at the end. So by this, we hope that we will get answered as much and many questions as possible. The session today is built on research that is also collected in a white paper and will also become a book and a course that is going to be launched next year. You will be sent a light version of a white paper, and you will also find a Forbes article today, published today by Professor Laker. So if you want to read a little bit more than what is in this session, you will have some more resources. So let's go over to my findings. The first question I would like to ask you is there a need for a new management model? Why transform your company at all? And for me, this is absolutely straightforward, yes. The environment have changed so much and our economy have changed so much, specifically with the pace of digital technology. So there is absolutely no, I would say, situation where you can stand still in the boat and stay as you are. So most companies today need to transform. And one of the driving forces is also the new entrants. They were born in the digital age and they now disrupt industry after industry. And we all know who they are. We have the Tesla, we have the Google and other companies. and not to mention companies like Alibaba and Tencent from China. So the traditional companies, they need to either react or they are proactively acting and transforming the companies. And the hard thing is that this new model is following totally different design principles. So it's a challenging task to transform a company from more or less 180 degree. But some companies have done it, and GE Appliances is one of those. So the study I did was a 7-month study on how the senior leadership team perceived their company in 2016. And why I choose that number and that year was because that was a year when Haier acquired GEA. Then they were to also give their perception of the company in 2021 and also the perception of the transformation of the company. And to just put it short, it was absolutely mind-blowing. I collected quantitative data as well, and I presented those in graphs. And it's like two different companies. The 2016 company is a totally different company from 2021. And we have an expert here on corporate culture and culture transformation in form of Professor Schein, and also with Professor Laker. But for me, this, I don't think I ever seen a similar case in my research career. It was absolutely mind-blowing, and it was a 180-degree pivot of the company in less than 5 years. So it was not in a very long time period at all. They went from a focus on cost efficiency and top-down leadership and being a machine bureaucracy organization to a focus on growth and decentralized decision power and a flat and agile organization. And the question is, how is that even possible in only 5 years? And as I said, I never seen any company doing that so quickly and so disruptively. So to end my small part here, I would like to raise some key findings. One is, and those are absolutely, I would say, precondition behind a GEA's case. One is that the former CEO, the current CEO, the former CTO, Kevin Nolan, he had a vision, what I call in an old suit. He had already a vision while working for GEA, being part of GE, that this is not the way that GEA should be run. He had over and over again felt frustration over how the company was run and the focus on efficiency and on profitability rather than grabbing and leveraging on all the opportunities that were out there. So the desire to change was already there when Haier bought the company. Then Haier acquired GEA and appointed Kevin Nolan as the new CEO. And this was also important, not only that they appointed the new CEO, but also that Haier themselves had then been doing transformation that in itself had been over 15 years. And then they themselves had a total conviction led by Chairman Schein that to keep an old traditional company model is not an option for them. And they developed what they call the Rendanheyi philosophy, based on a number of core new design principles that are definitely guiding stars of the new management model for the IoT. So what they also did then, being acquired of a new parent company that already had a model, that had the conviction that they shared with Kevin Nolan, that also already have been frustrated with the old model, they started to do some really important technical changes in the leadership, the culture, the organization, and the alignment of people and tasks that had a very direct and fast impact on the change of the company. And with that, I would like to end my session and go over to the one that really knows what happened inside the company, Antonio Boadas.
Thank you, Professor Annika. I don't know if I know what is happening here, but at least I live it every day. And Yes, I'm kind of your eyes and your ears here inside of this fantastic transformation. And we're saying here that companies need a revolution. I don't know if we need a revolution, but actually we need to look at what is possible and really understand that where we are today is not probably the right place. And things are changing so fast that if we pretend that we're going to be evolving with the reality, means that probably we're going to be behind the curve. So thinking ahead of what is coming and trying to shaping the future is probably the best recipe for us. I joined the company 3 years ago when the transformation already started. But the reason why I came is because I wanted to be your eyes. I wanted to be the insider. I wanted to be part of this, what some people might have called experiment, but actually is one of the most aggressive and interesting and different transformation processes we have documented. And a good day at the old GE appliances company under GE was a day when we didn't receive any call from corporate. It was a day in which nothing bad happened. So we were avoiding risk all the time. And this is how the company was kind of ran and that was dying. We didn't know that we were dying until we saw that, well, actually our growth was very slow. Our focus was not on growth and acquiring new markets, was more on cost efficiency. We spend more time dealing with internal processes that actually working with our customers and our clients. We were avoiding risk because we didn't want to get that phone call from corporate, and we built very bureaucratic organization because accountability needed to be watered down across different stakeholders to avoid the risk and the phone call from the corner office or from corporate, which was not co-located here in Kentucky. And the company that was founded by entrepreneurs like Thomas Alva Edison lost its soul. This is a company that has been around for more than 100 years, and this entrepreneurship spirit was gone and was taken over by processes, was taken over by some of this constructs that were pretty much arbitrary, that we're turning this into a machine versus a conglomerate, a group of people who are creating and doing and serving and fulfilling their own dreams. So our company was not in the right place. And with the acquisition in 2016, important clarification, Haier never asked us to change. They just gave us the opportunity to realize that we needed to change, that there was an opportunity to change, and there was a business model, business philosophy that they've been testing for 14, 15 years in China, and that could help and work in the US. And the first year, this is why we're saying our transformation has been for 4 years, even though the acquisition was 5 years ago, is because the first year we didn't embrace Rendanheyi. We just were trying to learn what Rendanheyi was about, and we were trying to realize what we needed to change and why we needed to change. As you know, acquiring new behaviors start by realizing that you need to change, and that was our first step. So Rendanheyi shows the way, and the exercise we went through, which was more like than a pilot, was really commitment to do it. Is we need to change the way we're approaching our goals, the way we're approaching and we were living our culture, the way we are structured, the most visible element of our organization, and then the way we were rewarding the right behaviors. And the first thing that you might be surprised by this, but was our reality. As a company, we were basically delivering a business. We didn't have a clear leading goal or a clear leading strategy. The first thing we did was we want to be number one in this company. We want to grow, and we want to make sure that we, as team members of this organization, we know where we're heading to, and we're heading to being recognized as the leading appliance company in the US. 5 years ago, We were number 4, just dropping it to number 5 in the marketplace. Now we are like 1 inch away of becoming number 1. And from the being recognized part of our leading goal, yes, we're being recognized right now as the leading appliance company. So we are almost there only 4 years ago. Communicating and engaging the organization around this very possible, bold, and inspiring goal was fundamental for us to really move forward. The second is we call this killing the traditions. I think it's very harsh to say killing tradition. I think it's more like reinventing and rethinking what are these things that we have been doing forever, and questioning them, why are we doing this? And then just try to replace it with new practices. In our own world, corporate was our boss. Well, now we're saying that the owner, the user, the consumer is our boss, and we are really focused on that, serving our user, because they pay us with their trust and their investments. Playing not to lose versus playing to win. And you can read here on the screen, reactive to competition, leading competition, going from products and pricing, and this is what we offer, and you see the little signs in the stores, and this is my product with my features, and here's the price, versus solution and experiences, offering something more for your money, and building lifelong relationships. We embrace a culture of experimentation. Therefore, we created a safer environment with the psychological safety was paramount. And finally, this is beyond the name. We are treating people as people. We're treating people as entrepreneurs. We're treating people in a way that they feel that their dreams can be realized here, and that they kind of align their passions with their work. And as Professor Schein said the other day, is so work and passion can be in the same sentence, and we can complete each other's sentences while we're working, because we share the same dreams. And so that's what we have been doing from the cultural point of view. We're defying bureaucracy. And that idea that we need to go through 7 layers and 5,000 PowerPoint slides to get anything approved is gone. Okay, so that sad life in which we need to serve your colleague and your manager here to get something done is in the past. So what we did was we broke down the company into small pieces. We call it micro enterprises, and the platforms are supporting them. But the key element here is that we push down accountability, decision making. So we now all, each of us, we own our own destiny. We know what we're doing, and we are accountable for doing it. We don't need to ask for permission for every single thing in our daily lives. And the third piece is rewarding the right things, right? It's not rewarding people for checking the box and going through a process and feeling fulfilled that, yes, they did it. It is about creating value for yourself, creating value for your owner, your customers, the people you serve, creating value and adding value on building the company and building the market. Rewarding with the users, with the products, and with the scenarios in which we play has been critical. And this concept of pay by owner or pay by user is critical. So the value you add is rewarded with the pay by the user. Therefore, there is an immediate zero distance connection with the marketplace. So we're fanatics and really focused on serving our owners and achieving zero distance. As a result, and this is not a spoiler, we have talked this, our company went from not growing to growing double digit. Our company went from number 4 to becoming almost number 1. And our company went from being behind the industry growth to leading the industry growth. So last year, we recorded the best performance in the 105 years of this company. Can an old company change? Yes. So we are changing. And what did you change? We changed the way we approach our challenges. And if you ask me or Kevin Nolan, our CEO, any of our team members, did you change your people? No, we're almost the same people that ran this company 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There are few people like myself, few others who came attracted by this amazing project. But the core of the business and the leadership remain intact. So what was the difference? I would say the difference was in that we were able to do what we thought we needed to do. We were released from that corporate handcuff, and we were able to do what we said that, well, I wish we could go to the market this way. I wish we could make decisions faster. Now we're doing it. So we have been unleashed. And these are the results of letting people be people, humanizing the workplace, and offering people the opportunity to be accountable for the work they do. So yes, we're ready, and we've been ready for quite a while. What we're doing is as if looking for getting to zero distance to our customers and our consumers through creating ecosystems, through developing solutions, to creating a more digitally driven organization, creating more organic organizational structures that merge and fuse and emerge as solutions all the time. Our lessons, and with this, I'll leave the floor to the Q&A and the conversation. You have heard about Rendanheyi. Our learning is that Rendanheyi is a philosophy. So don't expect any of this learnings from GEA to be applicable to any other company without any twist. This is not a recipe. Rendanheyi works in its own ways in different markets. So you need to learn it, understand the principles, and then apply what works for you. The interpretation we have and the application we have of Rendanheyi in the US is not the same that we have in China, or is quite similar to what is being executed in Europe as well, because it needs to fit the American conditions and the conditions of GE appliances in the US. Challenge your traditions, which is basically challenge the old ways and just ask the question, empower your people, and then remember that change is hard. So every time you try to change something, there will be 7,000 reasons why you shouldn't change. And there will be antibodies that will be fighting you back. So you need to know exactly where you're heading to and protect the space you are winning with your new initiatives. So this is pretty much what I can tell you about what I see and what I experience every day. This is an amazing company, and the transformation we're experiencing today is refreshing because you can see that the company responds to the interventions we're making, and the people actually love the working for a company that gives them the opportunity to be people and to do what they know how to do best. And these are the slides I have to share with you and to guide the conversation. But I'm now get back to you, Professor Annie.
Thank you so much. And I do agree with you. I've seen many cases around the world, but this is maybe one of the most interesting because you didn't do a big disruption of people or the big disruption of structure that maybe would have been recommended by some consultancy company. You changed your focus and you changed your mindset. So and that led to huge transformation. I would like now to open up for questions from the experts, and I would like to maybe start with Professor Laker. If you have any questions to Antonio or myself.
One of the questions that I had, and I think some of the delegates as well are touching on a similar train of thought here. I was really fascinated to learn about the level of retention, particularly if you're interested, like I am, in the scholarly literature around performance improvement and particularly turnaround. Often you hear that in turnaround situations, you are required to displace large amounts of people because they don't possess capability. And capability is the result of poor performance. But I think what is so fascinating about this particular case, and this is why it should be studied, and it is indeed seminal, is that the majority of people that were there are also there now in the best performance in the 103-year history. Yeah. So I would just love to learn a little bit more about exactly, or some detail around what retention and the percentage of those who were there versus at the start of this amazing transformation.
Yes. So that there are very few people actually left the company in the first year or so of the transformation. So there was no real rejection to the idea of change, because I feel like this first slide that when I just said that the company was dying, I think was something that people shared but didn't talk about it. So they felt like the opportunity, like, well, we love this company, we would love to do something for it, let's give it a chance. So there was a passion there. The second is what this transformation on the Rendanheyi offer was nothing really strange. So it was something that everybody wanted. Basically, it's like, give me the opportunity to make a decision without asking permission and wasting my time for 45 days. Give me the opportunity to grow and to do what I think is right. Let me be the CEO of my own space and be accountable for that. And let me be rewarded for the value I create. So it's just like, these are like concepts that I think we can all relate to. Not everything is perfect, but at least these elements will give you the energy to give a try. And this is what has been happening over the last 4 years. We've been given a try and the results are back.
And if I can comment on that, I think it's a perfect answer. I was astonished as a researcher to see how the people, as you said, Antonio, really loved the company and sort of have been mistreated for years, and they were not really happy. And then they got this new chance and for the love of the company to actually be involved, and they got involved in the change process. So some of the most important senior leaders, they were more or less asked to themselves develop how it should look like. And they came to a conclusion very similar to the micro enterprise concept. That is to be able to have a profit and loss responsibility, to be able to take responsibility for the result, for what they are doing, and to focus much more on the market. So it was very much aligned with what they wanted. So in that way, they got it. They got a number of senior leaders immediately on board on the change process. And some of the others that had maybe a tougher change, to go from a position where they have had a lot of power to maybe more of a servant position. There in those cases, it was very clear that there's no way back. Either you accept or you don't accept. And I like the way that the change management was done. It was very professional, I think. Okay, Peter, do you have any question to Antonio, to myself?
Yeah, I think it's a related one. That if we talk about retention, I'd also love to hear about recruitment, because you're talking about a transformation that we can really see as kind of hitting the market where it is, the employment market where it is. In other words, if you're a 20-something coming out of an engineering program or a marketing program, are you going to be attracted to the GE Appliances, the division of big GE, or were you able to attract a whole new body of prospective, employees and prospective future leaders, because you were crafting something around this? This company is oriented around sort of continuous learning as opposed to continuous fitting in, right? The new company is about learning to grow, not about fitting in to survive. So I would think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, did that just give you a whole new way of recruiting and bringing in new talent?
Yes, yes, and yes. You got 3 questions and 7 comments in what you just said. I love it. Still, we are the best kept secret in the Midwest. Okay, so I don't know how much you knew about the GEA transformation until this opportunity of having this conversation took place. We're getting new people. We're getting we're attracting new talent. That kind of talent that will propel this company to new places. But it's still very early in the process because our story is not out. We need to tell our story. And the work that Professor Annika and Bill Fisher and many others have been doing, and you as well, is okay, so this is an interesting company from the academic point of view. There is something that is going on here. And then it'll be my job as communicator of this company to say like, yes, and just give a try, right? Come and join us because something interesting is happening here. And your career, your desires could be fulfilled here. So to be an entrepreneur, you don't need to go and create your own startup. You can come here because this is the startups of the startups, and you have a space for you to match passion and work under a very safe and growing environment. So retention has been fantastic. Our team, I would say, is technically intact. Our attraction and new talent is getting better. We have 2 or 3 key challenges and one hope. So one is we want to be the most diverse company in the area, in the industry. Diversity is critical here, and being an engineer-focused organization with such a large manufacturing footprint, this male and female makeup is critical. So women in manufacturing, women in STEM, it's just one key focus we have. We need to bring more diversity to be able to reflect better the consumers and the markets we serve. The second is the multi-generational piece. So yes, this is a pretty mature organization with a long tenure. Who are those who are coming? It's a mix. It's a mix of mature professionals and leaders from other companies who are looking for better ways, new ways, learning like myself, and some of the new folks who are starting their career. That second group is where we have the challenge of how do we attract them to come and live and grow in the Midwest, in the US. It's making sure that they find their lives here in Louisville, Kentucky as an interesting life. That's the work we're doing with the city to make this place attractive. And because the company is attractive itself, we want to make sure that we create the conditions for that. And the third piece is when we're here, what you call the scalable learning, when you call like, okay, this is a company that is focused more on growing and changing versus adapting and avoiding. That culture is happening, and it's the combination of this new talent, the old talent, and the energy to changing and looking for a better way.
Right. And if I can give my sort of outsider perspective, I thought, it was fascinating when I interviewed the senior people, how they thought about recruiting. Back to the question, where they said in 2016, the obvious choice was to take someone most probably have been in GEA for a decade, had a super long operational career with very deep technical knowledge. And then in 2021, based on becoming now a leader in North America, based on the fact that we are in an IoT era, we are now looking for competences that we don't have. We need people that understand the IoT. We need people that understand AI. We need, and so it's definitely an evidence, I would say, that they went over to a learning mindset, that we don't know everything and we need new people coming into the organization and cover up what the gaps we have in order to reach the leading goal now. So it was a very, very strong case for that, definitely. I would like to go over to Professor Schein. and ask if you have a specific question before we go over to the sort of more round table.
I certainly am amazed, as you are, at this change. And to get to my question, I need to point out a couple of things that strike me in the presentations of what I think must be necessary conditions for this kind of rapid change to occur. And those conditions are sort of obvious, but not always present. Namely, there has to be a parent with a philosophy that is congruent with this kind of learning process. There has to be a CEO who buys into that philosophy and who has the personal skills to begin to make it work. And once you have those two conditions, there has to be a need, a sense in the company that things are not working as well as they should, so that there's a kind of readiness to try to learn something new and different and better. So from that, you then get a new strategy, a new sense of structure, and that leads to the question of how then do you change the mass of social relations that have built up over centuries of what is a boss and what is a subordinate, and how does a hierarchy work. The biggest puzzle to me is how you get psychological safety at every level of the hierarchy, because bosses are bosses. They've been promoted to tell other people what to do. I am baffled how you actually were able, even though it did take a few years, to get the present set of bosses to behave in a more theory-why, belief in people, belief in the vision. They had to make a massive change in their own daily behavior, and I don't understand how you accomplish that.
Because it's work in progress. I wouldn't say we have accomplished it. There are pockets of brilliance, but there's some dark corners as well. We're learning, okay? And what you're saying is absolutely spot on. So it takes vulnerability, and it takes openness to get to the point in which you give away the power that you have been working for years. We grew up in a highly bureaucratic world in which the higher you go in the organization, the more power you have. The door that will close your office, and there will be an assistant in front it's a doorkeeper. So this symbolisms are important, and that we kind of got rid of them, but it's just like very superficial, so you don't get to see real change. So that's, you don't see those doors, you don't see those doorkeepers, but still, bosses are bosses, as you said. A few things that we are doing to help the organization to embrace this. So you won't find an organizational chart in this company. And Professor Annika has been begging me to send her our org chart. We don't have it. And we don't have it because I'm the one responsible for putting them together, and I refuse to do it because that will go against the principle that the only boss we have doesn't work for this company. The only boss we have are those who we serve. Therefore, we're reporting to them. We have internal structures. Yes, we do have them, but they're flatter, and they need to be flat because each of us brings something unique to each team, which are the micro enterprises or the platform. This uniqueness shouldn't be connected to a reporting line and a line of dependency for decision making, because I'm accountable for my own results. That's in principle. This is how we're helping the organization to do this. That's one thing. Second thing. The third one, which I think was a very bold intervention we made. We no longer have these annual leadership retreats where the 12 leaders go and just like go to the Olympus and then decide the future of the world, then they come back and deploy strategies. So we no longer have that. So we have an annual all employee meeting where everybody gets together virtually. And it's 7,000 people connected, talking, listening, discussing. It's messy, it is complicated, but it breaks down this layer of leadership and power, and just that idea that very few have the key to the coffer. So we all have something to offer here, and we all have some skin in the game. That is the message behind that intervention. Are we there yet? Are we this poster child of some of the books that you wrote and we read? No. So we are not there yet. Are we heading there? Yes, I believe, yes, we are changing our leadership style. Our CEO, he goes beyond servant leadership. He says that no one reports into him, actually. He doesn't make decisions, so he facilitates. The role of the CEO is more an architect. He's more a facilitator and a coach than a decision maker. Decisions are being made down in the organization, and the same is happening with some of the key leaders in the organization. So we don't make decisions; we facilitate. That's one of the things that we're trying to do. There are many more interventions, but this is a process. This is a journey. I wouldn't say this change has a real clear destination. I would say like it's a process that will take us to a new space, which we don't know exactly what it is. But I think the leadership element, the cultural elements, and the psychological safety element are critical here. We are not there yet, but we'll get there.
Could I just point out that the most important thing I heard in what you said is 1,000 people listening to the same message. Because very often when we distribute the new ideas, we hear different things. So to bring your people together at one time, periodically, to hear the same message powerfully is, I think, a critical intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may comment on this as well, I think you're totally right. And we had another question from Professor Laker. You asked, how do you build a culture in a virtual environment, specifically during COVID? And so Kevin Nolan, the CEO, did more than that. He not only collected all 1,000, he does weekly or monthly, weekly all hands through videos. So he's creating a video every week, sending out core messages to everyone in the company, and to have them to be on the same page. And so again, I think that the company and definitely the executive team have been managing this transformation in a very fascinating way. And to come back to your question, how do you do that? How do you change this bureaucratic sort of leadership where the leader have the power to decentralization? And I would say it, for me as an outsider, was 4 things. One, the leading goal was so aggressive and so ambitious, so they couldn't do it themselves anymore. So by setting this leading goal, they had to rely on each other. 2, they changed and delegated decision power to 10 times more. So before, they might be able to take a decision that was under $5,000, an investment decision or a cost of $5,000. Now they can make decisions of $50,000. So they increased that by 10 times by just delegating, the decision power much more to lower levels. And then, of course, Kevin Nolan and some others have been absolutely key role model. When I asked them about this change in their own leadership to this decentralized leadership and giving away power, they said, yeah, but Kevin is all about this. Kevin is showing them over and over and over again that he doesn't want the leaders to make the decision and be in a totally, like in a very central role here. He wants the leaders to delegate it. So he is a role model. And then finally, for the people lower down in the organization, over time, they got evidence that this is true. This is not just a lot of flossy words. This is true. And this is the intention from the leadership, by being consistent all the time, every year, by enforcing the same kind of messages. So, so when the people start to see that, they also start to believe in it. So then the culture shift actually started to happen on a lower level as well. So that was, from an outsider perspective, the 4 things that I thought was very, very important. I would like to open up now for everyone to be able to ask questions. And we have not really discussed the Rendanheyi importance here. You were navigated, Antonio, GEA was navigated and guided by the concept of Rendanheyi, but you said you didn't really interpret it as the Chinese version of Rendanheyi. So my question to all of you that are aware of the Rendanheyi principle, how replicable are those principles around the world? And how important is it that you make this local translation of a concept?
Yeah, Rendanheyi could be very confusing, and it is confusing if you try to mimic what we do here or what we do in China, unless you really go deep into what the principles are. And this is the first exercise we did. So understanding what it meant. It is not only about the specific meaning of each of the words in Chinese. It is more like the deep understanding of what is behind that. What is behind that? This is the most probably, it's really human philosophy that starts by offering people the opportunity to connect their strength and their passions and their ideas to the work they do. So where the company doesn't interfere in those in those elements of your life, quite the opposite, offers you the platform to do it. The second is what we call zero distance. Zero distance is impossible to achieve, but at least as long as you attempt it, you're going to be making progress. Zero distance is reducing the space and the gap in between, for example, our innovation and the product we offer, between your desires as a consumer and our ability to supply them. It's not only physical distance, it is mental distance, it is philosophical distance. The closer we are, the better we can serve you. The third element is an important realization. So we are pay by owner, pay by user. So it's yes, we have a salary structure, but it's focused more on rewarding the value you create versus the entitlement based on tenure. So the more value you create and we create in the company, the better the compensation will be. So the notion of understanding that if you are in a coffee shop, if you don't sell coffee today, you don't make any money today. The same happens in our company. We don't sell our appliances today. There is no money for us tomorrow. So therefore, we need to make sure that we deliver that. So it's just, if you get to this point, you will see that this is highly applicable in many other companies. It makes sense and people will like it. If you try to translate directly and trying to apply it something you saw somewhere else, it might take a while for you to actually be able to execute it, because not everywhere you can have variable compensation. Not everywhere zero distance means the same. Not everywhere you can create macro enterprises the way we create them. There's some scalable capabilities that in China, they decided to split them in the micro enterprises. We decided to maintain it as a scalable capabilities like manufacturing, marketing, etc. So there are ways for you to apply the philosophy, but again, it's not a recipe.
Okay, so just to summarize, so you did adjust the concept, but it's a lot of this sort of principles that are still the same, but they are adjusted to your local American setting. I would like Professor Laker, you are an expert on leadership, and I know that you have studied also Rendanheyi. What comment would you say? Are those principles something that is is something worth aiming for and replicable, and is a local adaptation necessary?
I think it's absolutely worth aiming toward. And I think the premise of proximity and reducing proximity to customers, whether that be via a platform or platform type business, we can see is all the rage. You just have to look at organizations in Silicon Valley, many of the tech companies, education providers who are looking at reducing the distance between learners, whether it be those studying around the world who now no longer have to be on a physical campus as such, completely changing markets. So I think that premise seems to be quite widely adopted. I think the second part, which is much more around the structures, the systems, the processes, still, particularly in Europe, I think is regarded as somewhat revolutionary, particularly the way that you can turn structures completely on their head, to regard employees as entrepreneurs, I think is still somewhat radical, particularly in Europe. And I think that element of it, it's absolutely aspirational, as we can see from the results that Antonio has shared with us today, should be aspirational. But for many middle managers who will be seeking to demonstrate their worth within an organization, and particularly in countries like Germany, where those types of roles are protected from workers' unions, presents a great deal of complexity in trying to replicate the fantastic results that we've heard here today.
Fantastic. And Professor Schein, I want to ask you something, because you said something that blew my mind a couple of weeks ago. You said, regarding a transformation of a traditional culture to this sort of very different culture, you said it cannot be manufactured. Can you explore that a little bit more, elaborate on that? What kind of advice could we give companies if it cannot be manufactured, this kind of change? You mentioned some of the conditions before, but can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes, I would love to do that, because I think we underestimate the power of ideas and how they are expressed. So, for example, in a major turnaround of a hospital that I'm familiar with, the CEO with the vision, the Nolan in that organization, knew that he wouldn't get anywhere until he took his board members to Japan to see what the Toyota production system actually was. Until the board members understood it completely, he knew he didn't have the power to really push down to the next layer or two of management this new vision of, let's try running this hospital on the Toyota production system model. In the same way, Antonio frequently refers to they decided this, and who are these they? They are people who have been infected by this vision and by Nolan, and they have to be able to talk to 1,000 people themselves with the same enthusiasm. So the speed at which this happens is very much, I think, a function of very close relationships at every level, board to CEO, CEO to the next layer of vice presidents to the next layer of directors, and so on, without very close, what Peter and I are calling more level 2 personal relationships at every level of the organization, then that middle level supervisor won't get the message. It has to work level by level around closer personal relationships.
So then maybe I would like to end with a question to you, Peter, because I know you and Professor Schein have been developing a very interesting framework where you say that a leadership change, culture and change are intertwined. and I love the beach analogy. And I would love to see if you see that that could be applied in this case. And also, as Professor Schein mentioned, the change of relationship. Could you mention a little bit about those two things that could actually framework that could help other companies?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about the beach, and I think is built into this model, is it's a continuous change model. It's not a linear change model. And I think you can just sense from Antonio and the philosophy here that they are about continuous learning. They are not about a multi-step change program that has a beginning, middle, and end. This is a continuous adaptation process, which I think is very important for two reasons. One, I think we're learning in the 21st century that not only are things changing so fast that to adopt any sort of linear program, you're likely to be out of time before you've even gotten to the middle of the process. So rapid adaptation is clearly something that organizations are realizing they have to get to. But I think the other thing that really strikes me about this is we have this notion that the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. That's the famous William Gibson quote. And Rendanheyi is a perfect example of that, because it's recognizing that in what we like to use the sense of the technical culture, it's established a strategy and a design that fits the market. In the social culture, it's created a new way for people to be happier at work because they have tighter, stronger, more friendly. I mean, it doesn't have to be friendly, but it sounds like it's just closer relationships with the people they work with, because it isn't a big hierarchy. And it's not about climbing the corporate ladder. It's about zero distance to the customer. And then I guess the point in the macro culture, which is what we say is sort of the broad context that this is happening, we know that younger employees, we know that younger prospective employees are oriented this way. The world is flat. They value relationships. They value experiences. And so it just feels like this is a model that is well-tuned for, if it isn't working perfectly today, it's well-tuned for 10 years from now. And I think that's very inspiring.
Fantastic. So we have just a couple of minutes left. And as you can understand now, everyone that listen and tuning in here, this needs so many more hours. So if you want to know more, then reach out. There will be a light version of a white paper sent. There are Forbes and Drucker blogs out there. And there will also be courses offered. I would like to end with one question, which we will need to keep short, and that is the constant, the question coming up all the time. How did you do with middle management in the GEA in this change? And they refer to that a hire actually, they had 10,000s of middle managers leaving during the transformation. How did GE managers deal with changing from managing to leading and giving up control? How many hierarchical levels are actually left and how many managing positions are left? And I touched on that before, but Antonio, could we give some more data on that?
Only one middle level manager left the company in the year number 1. And that was a role that was eliminated, which was an extra layer that didn't make sense from the decision-making point of view. Only one. After that, the organization continues collapsing and reducing layers, but doesn't mean that this middle management layer disappeared and left the company. They just are embedded in the organizations and they have different roles, and the roles are defined differently. So what changes is the internal relationships and the dependency in the reporting lines, but the work continues being done, and the hands-over and the way things were done in the past have changed, but the people remain. And I'm sure you might know people who have left the company. So I'm not painting like a crazy story here. Yes, people leave companies and people join companies all the time. What I wanted to express here is that for us to move into this new direction, we didn't need to remove remove half of our bodies. Honestly, not. So there was not a bloody process. It was something that didn't require this level of separation.
So with that,
I have to break in and say they will change when their bosses change.
right. So I think that is a perfect ending of this session. I want to say thank you to Professor Schein, to Professor Laker, to Peter Schein, to Antonio Boadas, and to everyone else that listened. Take care, stay safe, and have a wonderful weekend, and stay tuned. We have a lot of interesting stuff coming up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good session.